when you look back and how man and humankind, roamed the earth and lived, we lived on the land. We lived in vastly different ways. We didn't have phones in front of us, other screens. We were in a community and tribes and culture, and slowly but surely that's been removed from us. So when you look at your day to day and you're in the grind and you wake up, wash, rinse, repeat, and you're not taking care of yourself from a self-care perspective or working and being in community, and then it becomes even more important to make sure that you are, whatever you feel, taking care of yourself is in that way. For me, it's trying to get enough sleep, drinking enough water, spend time with my friends and family. Those are the things that you can decide, but it absolutely impacts how you pick up and receive information.
So you'll find this interesting, but when I was 18, I was going through my awakening. I believe my grandma's spirit came for me, right? I had nobody, she came for me. And so at that point, my TV was clicking, it was her. Everything, every light flicker, every TV flicker, when the TV would just come on randomly, it was her to let me know that she's here. So it was almost like I was in that energy for months and months by default, that I'm now looking for reassurance of signs everywhere. My energy was just not turned off. Everything was just a confirmation that she's here. And I'll be like, shall I go have dinner tonight? Shall I do this? Shall I do that? TV will click. Okay, I'll stay in. TV will click. I'll go out, right? And I was living my life by the answer the TV, which was grandma, gave me.
We are all energetic beings, and we just don't necessarily understand, or we haven't been using that ability. It's kind of like we're talking right now. I'm picking up on nonverbal cues, but I'm not in my mind going, oh, he's nodding his head in agreement with me, but I'm still able to understand that. When you're more sensitive to energy and what people put out and what you're picking up, you can understand more on a deeper level, maybe what they're thinking, what they're feeling before they even say it. It's not really woo-woo, but we make it unattainable, or that it's something that only a few people have.
Just quickly, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who still listens to the podcast. I started 4 years ago, and since then I've had over 1 million downloads. I get 5,000 downloads per month, and I've had over 200 different guests. So a massive thank you to everyone who still listens. If you could please do me a favour, if you could rate and review the podcast, that will be amazing, because it helps get the podcast out to new, conscious people like yourself. And my goal is to awaken as many people around the world. You can also follow me on Instagram. It's YesKingOliver, should you wish to see what I get up to on my day-to-day moments. Back to the episode. So growing up, I had really bad acne, and it was just part of my face and part of my life. And I just got used to looking in a mirror and seeing it. What's very interesting is, apart from being called like pizza face and spotty, you never truly see how other people see you. So imagine being in a room where everyone else's skin's normal, and then you've got this one kid who's just got like a disgusting face. It stands out like a sore thumb. And so now, for example, if I've got a little pimple on my face, it doesn't bother me. And for most people, if they, for example, had a little scratch, a little spot, or a little whatever, they'd cover it up, or they wouldn't leave the house. So it's very interesting how we can see something how we want to see it. And if you want to see it as a bad thing, then you can see it as, oh, I can't go out the house looking like this. Or you can just see it as, it's part of life, this is me, and it doesn't bother you. But it's how you see the same thing, which is the powerful thing here.
Yes. Or is that, am I supposed to weigh in right off of that?
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was a question. Yeah, I mean, it's all about perspective and your perception of things and how you make it, and also how you react. But also, what I've found is, over time, you ebb and flow, you grow with that, and how your opinions and belief systems change over time.
Yeah, and obviously when you're a kid, you don't really understand the bigger world, the bigger picture, and you just essentially let the outside and your environment, your friends, make you feel a certain way rather than controlling the inside. And as you get older, you realize that only you can control the inside. And so that becomes a profound awakening at that stage in your life where you realize, actually, I can control exactly how I feel by controlling my inside and not letting others control me.
Yes, no, I believe that. And also that I do also, like I said earlier, ebbs and flows. It does too. I mean, even as an adult, that you mentioned as you get older, but ultimately, even that changes, depending on how you feel at that day. So constantly, at least thinking about how you're in control, you're empowered. And even if you feel one way one day, at least you can adjust that as things progress.
So, what are you currently thinking about in life right now in terms of trying to work out stuff?
Well, one of at least with the podcast that I have a psychic story, one of the main reasons I started it was kind of a little bit of what you're talking about here is that there's these misconceptions and myths about what a psychic is. Is that good? Is that bad? So for me, having grown up and been psychic all my life and having had experiences with friends and family, them as well, may have had intuitive and psychic things. That was something that I really wanted to bring to the forefront and come out of that quote unquote psychic closet a little bit more with the public and on a bigger stage. And I would say that still remains top of mind for me now, not because I don't claim that part of myself being psychic. However, what I find is a little bit more what you were talking about, like the spiritual growth, constantly trying to improve myself, look at things that maybe I could be looking at a little bit differently, and removing that lens of judgment of myself and others. So that's kind of, one aspect of where I am when it comes to perspective.
What's interesting is that psychic is energy, and so would you say that things like diet, being overweight, stress, staying indoors all day, not exercising, do you reckon that has any relevance to the purity of a psychic reading, or is it just your energy field? Obviously, that is affected by your
Oh,
environment, but you
wow.
know what I mean.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, I don't want to take, it could be a whole topic in this episode talking about those things, but I do believe that when you look back and how man and humankind, roamed the earth and lived, we lived on the land, we lived in vastly different ways. We didn't have phones in front of us, other screens. We were in a community and tribes and culture, and slowly but surely that's been removed from us. So when you look at your day to day and you're in the grind and you wake up, wash, rinse, repeat, and you're not taking care of yourself from a self-care perspective or working and being in community and holding yourself up, and I'm talking generally about a human person, because I believe we're all psychic, then that obviously is going to impact your life and your energy and your spirit. Now, if you're a practitioner and you apply things and are trying to tune in on a more regular basis to psychic abilities and give insight for yourself or others, then it becomes even more important to make sure that you are, whatever you feel, taking care of yourself is in that way. For me, it's trying to get enough sleep, drinking enough water. I probably should be taking more vitamins than I do. I am a little bit of a hermit because I have the podcast and sessions. So, but I try as much as possible to spend time with my friends and family. If it's not in person, at least it's virtual. So those are the things that you can decide, but it absolutely impacts how you pick up and receive information.
So I'm very, very, very in tune. I can think about things before they happen, and I can say that I can think about anybody and then just go out and see them. That is different in terms of, for me, for being able to have someone in front of me and give them a reading. Obviously, it is related. So how could I tune my very in tune energy in a different field into having somebody in front of me and being able to tune into their energy? It's different,
Yeah.
but how do you do it?
I mean, it is different and it's not at the same time. So the way I think about it is our instinct is our intuition, and intuition is our instinct and psychic ability. So just like we can see, hear, feel, know on a physical sense, we can do that emotionally, mentally, and on a spiritual level. And the more and more you're aware of how that shows up for you. So let's take if you relate to the fact that I'm an emotional person and I feel all the feelings all the time, then that's probably the fact that you're an empath. And so we that happens and occurs just like breathing. It's more about being aware. So when you say when somebody's in front of me and I tune in, I've gotten to the point where I'm intentionally then tuning in because that person has asked me to, or that's the intention. At the same time, as I'm going throughout my life, meeting with friends and family, I still may pick up on information and things, but I'm not intentionally trying to tune in a reading way per se.
So basically, it's like when you observe a particle, it knows you're looking at it.
Yeah.
If you've got a
Mhm.
client in front of you that wants you to read them, they're open. So now the antennas are open both ways. Whereas if it's a person at the gym who's on the reception and you're trying to pick up what they're going to have for dinner, well, their energy isn't open. It's
Correct.
blocked. So it's harder, but you are still able to, if you want to, tune into certain things. And it's very simply, rather than being a gym member, going up to the customer service counter and just saying, if you got a towel, right, and just thinking, oh, I wonder what dog you've got. If you purposely go up to them with the intention of trying to pick up
Hmm.
something, that's different. When you
Yeah.
want to tune in, you can, versus if you're just meeting another human being. So it's almost like two walkie-talkies, both are off. One is on kind of flashing on and off, which is just you. I wonder what dog they've got. Oh, whatever. But when they're both open, that's when it becomes in sync, right? And you can give really accurate
Yeah.
readings.
Yeah, the other, as you were talking, the other example my guides and angels were giving me is if you're in a car and you're driving, when you're listening to a radio station or, satellite or actual radio station, and then maybe that song is going out and you're like, no, wait, I want to get that song. And then another station or another song kind of comes on. It's the same thing. You're tuning into a vibration and frequency, and depending on how strong that signal is, you can pick up on it.
So I always wanted to be psychic growing up, and I believed I had the ability to, not to the accuracy. And someone called Darren Brown in the UK, he claims that he's not psychic, but he can basically do the psychic stuff. He understands like the physical side of stuff, and he doesn't believe in like spiritual and angels, not that type of thing. So if I wanted to start being more in tune with people, I have to simply see people as essentially victims, or not victims,
That's a
people to
terrible term.
people to read versus just
Mhm.
humans. So for
Right.
example, when
Yeah.
he goes out in the street in London to do his magic show, he's purposely looking for specific types of people that he knows he can get a
Hmm.
reading on,
Mhm.
versus just seeing them as another human being. So it's that mindset of, I'm going out to find people to read, versus you're just another human being.
Yeah, that might be his perspective, and kudos to him for that. The way I see it again is it's about our instinct. Almost like I'm terrible at math and I'm not a very good athlete, but I do have more sensitivities. I have a lot more emotion and caring, and that is just how I'm wired. And so there are other people that is super susceptible to hypnosis, or people who have had trauma. You look at that, and if someone's going in with the intention of looking for those types of people, then yeah, and if you know the playbook, I'm sure. But what I
Hmm.
equate and look to psychic and intuitive energy as is, again, we are all energetic beings. And we just don't necessarily understand, or we haven't been using that ability. It's kind of like we're talking right now, and I can see nonverbal from you. I'm picking up on nonverbal cues, but I'm not in my mind going, "Oh, he's nodding his head in agreement with me." But I'm still able to understand that. It's almost like being able to, when you're more sensitive to energy and what people put out and what you're picking up, you can understand more on a deeper level, maybe what they're thinking, what they're feeling before they even say it. So that's how I look at psychic or intuition. It's not really woo woo, but we make it unattainable, or that it's something that only a few people have.
So what's coming to mind is, imagine you're in the CIA and you're interviewing somebody. If you were just asking a random person questions, you're listening to just the responses. If you're a CIA trained, you're looking at the eye movement, the lip movement, the coughing, the throat, where his hands are, how he looks to the left. You're
Which
seeing
is
the
why they
same
teach you
thing.
how to interrogate people in the
Yeah,
CIA. Yes.
you're
Mhm.
seeing the same thing, but differently. So rather than just speaking to somebody, you're now speaking to them as, I'm trying to get a reading off this person, and you're tuning into what's coming to me versus just listening and just listening, right?
hmm Yeah. And for me, because I don't do this full time, I have the podcast. It's a passion project of mine. It was really to help myself and others not feel alone. And it's snowballed in a beautiful way into I do limited readings. And it was really for me to understand it. And when I do those, people ask me all the time, you do it with video or Zoom or things. And I say, no, I really 80% or 90% of what I'm doing, I have my eyes closed and I'm really tuning in to what
Mm.
I'm picking up, not just what they're saying. So that's how I operate and how it helps me to receive the information. But going back to of what you were saying, if somebody's open, just because somebody comes to you for a session and they're quote unquote open, there are a lot of skeptics out there. There are people that are like, I'm not telling this person anything and I'm blocking my energy and I want to see what I'm getting. And so there's so many different factors that go into it. And so, but yes, you're absolutely correct. If somebody's trained in a certain way with CIA or other, then of course they're going to be able to pick up on things that you or I are not able to if we're going for a regular job interview type of thing.
See, it's 12 years ago, actually 14 years ago, I had psychic readings online. And again, I was skeptical. And so I just said nothing, right? I said, just say what comes to you. The difference is I was open to seeing what comes to me versus blocked. So I said
Mm-hmm.
absolutely nothing, but I was so open to him telling me everything. He told me everything. And that was incredible. I've always had this ability to get into a deep meditative state where I don't feel my body and my TV will start to click and I can make it click on demand. So I'm tuning
So you
in.
have more of that, you have more of that is it psychokinesis where you can manipulate matter around you?
Yeah. So, for example, I can be in my bed, right? And I'm going into a deep meditative state. And all of a sudden, my TV clicks. And then I've connected, like the radio station. I've now tuned in. I've connected. So now I
Mm-hmm.
hold that energy and it clicks more. And I can ask it anything like, should I have pasta tomorrow or go out for dinner? And I go, should I go out for dinner? And if, for example, I know I should be cooking pasta, not eating takeaways, it won't click. And then when I say spaghetti bolognese, I will hold that thought and it will click to confirm what I already know. And I can just go now and it will click and I can do nothing for ages. And then it'll be, okay, to prove it to me, click now and it clicks. And then I go, okay, stop the routine, try whatever. And then I go to bed, no clicks. So what's your thoughts on that? Have you heard that before?
Not about the clicking of the television, but the way I look at it is going back to, you said his name's Dan, I think,
Darren
right?
Brown.
Darren Brown. Okay. So if he doesn't believe in guides and angels, that's totally fine. What I believe is whether you use pendulums or tarot cards or you connect with your guides and angels, it really is connecting with what I determine and call our higher selves and that part of ourselves that's connected to source, whatever you think a source is. So for you, if you're in that state of oneness or you're in that vibration frequency that's really in alignment with your true self, and you're asking the questions that you either already know the answers to, or maybe it's something that you're blocking unintentionally yourself on a conscious perspective, you receive the answer. So your TV in this instance is almost as if it's a pendulum. So when people use a pendulum and it moves, it's not like spirits moving it, you're moving it. And people like yourself, I heard this term on a different podcast. It's Derek Hayes, Monsters Among Us. And he found that there's this term called sliders, where sliders they are people that have more electromagnetic energy pulsating in and around. We have electromagnetic energy in all of us, but some are like more conduit ability. I don't know if you're a kid and you used to take your socks and you would try and see as much static electricity as you could get and shock people, or if you were really good at shocking, and that doesn't surprise me, that you could also manipulate your television. So I think it's you connecting with that higher self. You're in that tune, that vibration and frequency to receive, and you're giving yourself the answers, whether you know or you're trying to find the answer that you might again unintentionally be blocking yourself on.
So you'll find this interesting, but when I was 18, I was going through my awakening. I believe my grandma's spirit came for me, right? I had nobody, she came for me. And so at that point, my TV was clicking. It was her. Everything, every light flicker, every TV flicker, when the TV would just come on randomly, it was her to let me know that she's here. So it was almost like I was in that energy for months and months by default, that I'm now looking for reassurance of signs everywhere. My energy was just not turned off. Everything was just a confirmation that she's here. And I'll be like, shall I go have dinner tonight? Shall I do this? Shall I do that? TV will click. Okay, I'll stay in. TV will click. I'll go out, right? And I was living my life by the answer the TV, which was grandma, gave me. I now know. I always thought to myself, was she actually there?
It could
And
also
I
be
now,
her though.
Obviously
Be
it could
both.
be her, but
Yeah.
based on the fact that I haven't been able to get back into that state of energy
Hmm. Hmm.
since 18 years, 12 years ago, and I've only just realized I can get into that state literally a few weeks ago, it tells me that it wasn't actually her, and it was my belief that she was here because I wanted somebody at that point to understand me, and I had nobody. So I wouldn't be in my bed. I'd get in that state. Grandma, are you here? Make a sound. Turn the Mac on. The Mac would turn on. So not just my TV. The Mac behind me would go on for like 20 seconds, and I'd hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it, turn off. Right. And it was, Grandma, if you're here, turn the Mac on. She turned the Mac on. She let me know she's here. I go to sleep happy. Right. Well, if I'm getting back into that state, it tells me that she wasn't actually here. And it's my own energy projecting out into my environment and causing a static charge in these devices. So, as you said with the TV, it's me being in tune to my higher self, getting answers that I know are true, which I could get with just acting on the feeling of now, or getting a pendulum, or uh, just asking myself, shall I do it? And learning to trust that. So rather than using the TV as a backup, as a confirmation, like a psychic, trust that if a color red comes to you, there must be a reason. Or Jasper must be an uncle or something. It's learning to
Hmm.
trust that feeling rather than need an external confirmation, right?
Absolutely. But also, could it be both? Could it have been at
Yeah.
that time that at first it was your grandmother and, however long it was before she had passed, and when you were connecting, regardless that you wanted so much, you were picking up the phone and calling her, and she showed you an ability that you had in order to communicate, and now you no longer need her, so now it's you. It could also be both. It doesn't have to necessarily be one or the other. So that could be it. And then when you say you can't get to that same state that you did 18 years ago, and now you're realizing this, maybe it was again the state that you're trying to feel is her energy around you versus you picking up on this. Again, it could be both. Just something to consider.
Yeah, you're right. We're never going to know. It could be both. But yeah, so I I get into a really deep meditative state, and I can't get into the state if my body's moving. So it's not just like I'm sensing with my mind and my body's moving. This only happens when I can't feel my body anymore. As in,
Hmm.
I haven't moved for 5-10 minutes where I'm like just conscious, pure consciousness. There's no body. It only happens when I get into that state, and that takes at least 10 minutes. And if I can feel my body, if I move, it doesn't work. It's something to do with the static energy coming off my body when I'm
Hmm.
just still, and my energy expands, expands, expands. The TV's here, so it reaches that, and then it sort of charges the TV and it creates a circuit. And then I'm in tune with the TV, and I was, creating a static charge with the Mac or something. And it's a specific frequency that I had
Yeah,
to get into or have to get into. I can't just like lie down and do it now. It doesn't work. But
that's fascinating.
I understand now why I couldn't get into that state, because I wasn't lying still long enough since
Mm.
12 years ago.
Yeah, that's so cool. When you feel that, do you like, I remember when I was little, I can't get to this anymore, but when I was about 3 to 5, I could feel my back when I was laying on the bed get really hard and almost like my back was separating and I could no longer feel my back. Is that how you feel? Like, do you feel weighty and then light?
It's almost like I just can't feel my body. So it's almost like if you're trying
Mm.
to sense where your hand is,
Mhm.
I can
Yeah.
sense now where my
So you're
hand
having a
is.
little bit of an out of body experience a little bit, even though you're still there.
Yeah, you could say like when you're dreaming and you're going through that what's it, sleep paralysis, where you're aware that you're trying to move but you can't move, right? It's
Mhm.
almost like that. I know I'm here, but I can't feel my body. So it's like, am I dead? Am I asleep? Similar to sleep paralysis, I presume, where you kind of trying to move your body but you can't, and it's just awareness. Um,
You're getting into that state of Zen almost like the Buddhist monks do, which take years and lifetimes of training. I'm not an
yeah, and all
expert in that, but that's what it's kinda sounding like to me.
and like yeah, it's interesting because obviously they sit up, right, when they meditate.
Mhm.
I couldn't get into that state sitting
I
up. I'd be
can't I
moving
can't
and
I can't
fidgeting.
I can't do it sitting up. I have to lay down too.
Yeah, and I used to lie on the kitchen floor for 3 hours during the night speaking to my grandma back in the day, and the lights were flickering, clicking like mad. Plastic was clicking in my bedroom. Everything in my surroundings, metal, plastic, or electrical, it was clicking. And I was talking to like all the things in the room to get answers. And this is when I was very lost. No one else understood me, how I saw the world. Why am I like this? Why have I got spots? And in my head, I was asking the question and then using that as confirmation. And it'll be, have I got spots because I need to learn to love myself? Ping. Have I got spots because I have a shitty diet? Ping. Okay, what do I eat that's really bad? And I go through the options. Pizza,
Yeah.
ting, fruit.
You were doing some psychic exercises, not even realizing that you were, because that's what I suggest to people is when you're looking for the question, you start with one and then you just drill it down further and further and further until you get that psychic hit, or in your case, you were getting the pings, like the actual electricity or whatever those appliances were that were clicking.
And what I used to do initially was I used to get my iPhone, put the flash on, and I used to say,
Hmm.
Grandma, if you're here, fly past. So like an orb, right? I
Hmm.
always saw orbs as ghosts and spirits, and then I started trying to communicate, right? And then the orb would fly past. I now realize it was just dust in the air, that my energy was magnetically
Yeah.
pulling towards the
Hmm.
screen. Obviously, it could be a spirit, but I try to dissect everything. I don't believe everything I hear. And I concluded that it's just dust and I'm magnetically pulling it. And I used to like look at the light, right? And I could see dust flying. And I used to control it where I wanted it to go. So if I wanted it to
Hmm.
land here, I literally could control it, right? And on the screen, if I presume my grandma was in the corner, the right hand side, which is the right hand side of the phone, she'd fly past the right hand side of the
You're
phone,
creating your own reality
and
with
she'd
your
literally
grandma.
fly. I'll say fly off to the left where the door is, and she'll go right. So when you feel so that was confirmation of yes. When she flew past, the orb was a yes, and I haven't been able to get that back since then.
So do you think it was her or not then? Do you think it was you manipulating the dust and hoping that you believed against all hope that it was her?
That
Yeah.
that,
That's
but
what I'm
back
getting. That's
then,
what I'm getting from as you were talking. But back then you really fully
Back
believed
then,
it.
oh
Yeah.
fuck me,
Hmm.
grandma was here, mum, grandma's here. Can you not see it? You stupid, like she's here. Oh yeah, like she was there. I couldn't see her, but she was there. I was tingles, I was
Hmm.
charging, but again, it was my own energy like expanding from a child to an adult, where it was stuck inside my body, just like all knotted and tense.
Hmm.
And it was like being free, like when you have a really bad diet and then you remove the bad stuff from your diet, your body sort of just you break out and then you set yourself free and your skin starts to grow back amazingly. It was like just that, and that
Mm.
intense energy was just affecting everything around me because my body had never been in that state before, because I've been depressed and stuck inside myself. And yeah.
Yeah. The two things, I want to talk about the medium part here in a moment, but this was probably about last year and a half ago. I was writing a book. I had a full-time job. I had the podcast and I was doing sessions. I mean, I was traveling for work like crazy. And I noticed that I was frying things. My work laptop died. My personal laptop died. My television in my bedroom died.
Mm,
And one day I walked in and I was
mm,
like, you know what? I'm going to ground myself and I'm going to take a couple deep breaths and I'm just going to be in gratitude because I was stressed AF. And I walked into the living room and I said, thank you. I looked at my television, the one that had the only technology in my house that at this point hadn't blown up. And I said, thank you for not dying on me. And the thing turned on. And I normally people, I guess, would freak out. That has never happened to me before. And I heard in my head, it's you. It's you. So then that's when I went down the research of what you're talking about, more about electricity and how we can,
mm.
if we're stressed or we're sad, we can impact the things around us. And so that's the first thing. So I definitely believe there's a huge component of that, whether you call it psychic or not. What are you laughing at? Did you see something?
No, no, I'm just
Okay.
I'm
Oh
just
yeah.
saying, like, wow,
Whether
that's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, whether you're psychic or not. And the other thing that I knew that it wasn't like, just a blip in tech or whatever. The remote control was across the room. It turned on to something like an app I had never used before. I had never downloaded. So it was one of those weird things. It wasn't the last thing you had watched or anything of that nature. So that's the first. And the second I'll say is that's why I don't also classify myself as a medium or think about it. The only time I've ever really felt loved ones on the other side, like my grandmother or something, is unfortunately when there's bad news. And I will actually feel energy in a room. There was one evening I was sleeping and I sat up and I felt a number of loved ones in my room, which is very rare. It never happens. Didn't see them, no other messages. And I thought, oh, this is kind of nice. You're all here. Why are you here? And it felt very loving. And I thought, okay, this is great. They're here. But I knew something big was coming, but I was being blocked from it. And then 2 weeks later, I had two deaths in my family. It was almost like this receiving line. So I say that because I truly believe that there's still connection and like when we die, our souls, maybe our physical body is left behind, but we go and our energy transforms in a different state. Now, what does that look like officially? Have I seen a full-blown ghost or the soul of my grandmother? No. Do I communicate with her occasionally, but it's not a everyday thing. And it's very different than when I'm using my intuition to connect with another person's energy.
The reason why I was like, wow, is because when I used to be on my computer back in the day, the Wi-Fi just kept cutting out, and I get so more irate, and it will cut out even more.
And then
When I
it,
do
yeah.
Zoom, when I do calls with video, when I do podcasts with some people, and they've got high energy and they're very like they're really going for it, it cuts off, and the screen starts going blurry and pixelated. And I know what that is. Their energy is affecting their laptop and the signal and everything. And yeah, my phone used to die, and the more I'd focus on it dying, it would just fucking die. It was like I was sucking out the charge from it by focusing on it. The
You're
Wi-Fi
actually
was a huge
amplifying
thing.
it. It's
Huh?
you're actually amplifying and manifesting it. It's a whole thing we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, it's
So
unreal.
so yeah, the Wi-Fi was a huge thing, and it was just used to drive me crazy. The more I focused on it, the more it would do it. Something else I could do was the phone has a balancing thing, like a compass, where you put it on a flat
Oh yeah.
surface
Hmm.
and it would tell you how flat the surface is, right? And I would say to my dad, watch this, and I'd spin the phone and it should go to 0. But when I focused on it, I could make it stay on 1 or 2. It will flicker 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. It needs the energy in space to know where it is in space. And if I'm taking away that energy, it would just flicker. And I'd look away and it would go to 0. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? Right? I didn't know what was going on. I was controlling all these things in my environment, and I had no idea I had these powers. I felt like I was fucking God. And weird shit kept happening, like meeting my friend at a certain place, and I hadn't even told him I was going to be there. And he says, you told me to be here. And I was like, no, I didn't. Haven't told you yet. And he's already there. And it was just all this weird shit. Was like, what is going on? And I was like, I went onto another planet because I was just thinking shit, and it was happening, and I wasn't even physically talking about it because the energy was so strong. And then wild shit just kept happening, and it's like, okay, too much. It's fucking too much. And you got to come out of this like quantum world back to
Yeah.
reality, because you literally, I remember walking around everywhere, seeing everything that no one else saw, being in tune to everything. Someone's on a phone call, I kind of knew it was his mom, and she's wanting to take him out on the weekend. I was just seeing everything, and it was like I wasn't living in the physical real world. I was in the spirit world. I was
Yeah.
in grandma's world, and her spirits were connected to everything. I was living in that world. And everything was spirits communicating, and it was just the physical body. It was dead. Had to come back down to earth. Fun time though. Fun.
You're like fun time. And then now have you been able to kind of merge it, I guess, when it comes
Yeah,
to
so as I
that?
said, I've been living in my normal life for the past
Uh-huh.
10 years, but I didn't realize I could get back into that state of clicking the TV until
Right.
recently. I thought, will I ever get back to that state? I didn't understand how I used to get in that state. And then just by chance, it just clicked. And then I
Mhm.
remembered, if I focused on grandma being in the Mac, if I focus on the TV, I keep the charge. And then I was able to do it. I'm like, this is how I do it. Keep your body still. There's something about keeping the body still so the energy can expand from the center point in your body. Whereas if we're moving around all the time, like if you're trying to get signal, you move around to try and like kind of pick up the signal. If you stay
Yeah.
still, then if it's not locked there or there's no signal there, you won't quite get it. So if you get the signal and then stay still, then you can sort of like amplify it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost what I'm hearing is that people don't necessarily always understand that they can throw their energy. Like we generate energy. And I'm not talking about our heat body or even the electricity. There are some where it's almost like I'm hearing like you're amping up, you're charging. And then when
Mm.
you're in states of either intention, where you're focused on something mentally or energetically, or you're running around like I had been at the time and you're stressing, you're not realizing it, you're throwing your energy out there. And the example that I was being given is that it's kind of like, speaking of your phone and how you said, if I'm focusing on that, then it's like the charge is getting less and less and less. It's not as much as you're draining it, as much as you are manifesting and generating the outcome that you think that you want, or that your energy is focused on. So let's say I wake up and I'm really irritated and I'm in a bad mood, and I go and somebody cuts me off in traffic, and then I'm irritated and angry even more, and it's energy and it's building and the emotion. And then I go to the grocery store and the person's really slow in line. I'm creating those experiences unbeknownst to me that are what I think, or my energy field thinks that I'm wanting to receive, which is another way of saying manifesting, but I think that gets overused. People don't understand necessarily how it works. So that's what I was kind of getting. So if we can understand how we hold space, how overall vibrations and frequencies work through us and with us. And then now, how does my intuition help me clue in? However that works for you. You have a certain way, obviously, to either manipulate physical things around you and the electricity, but it also can be emotions or receiving images in our minds. All of those things are ways that they're receivers and receptors to pick up on that. So then it allows us to adjust throughout our day to day.
Yeah, I knew somebody who hadn't had a period for like 10 years, and I messaged her saying, okay, you really need to go to the doctor and get this sorted out. And she was like, I just had my period. She goes, Oliver, how did you do that? What, how? I've just had my period. I'm like, well, I'll just have these, just have these abilities. So again, right, the main thing is, right, if you want to access this level, you have to set the intention essentially. Otherwise, you just be default what you already were. So if someone's negative, obviously they're not just going to suddenly be psychic. If someone's positive, they're not just going to be psychic. So I call it, you've got different frequencies and like many levels on that frequency,
Yes.
right? So you can't just be negative or positive. You've got to raise your energy so high. And then if you're negative or positive, then it will amplify, but it will just whether or not things you don't want come or things you want come. And to amplify your energy, what would you say is the one thing that people can do apart from meditate?
Well, I would say, I've said it a few times, but in another way, is really paying attention to what's happening around you and pay attention to your energy. So one of the things I like to do, and when I'm tuning in, even with myself, I don't do this probably as regular as I should, but daily I at least try to do check-ins with myself. So how am I feeling? How am I feeling mentally? How am I feeling emotionally? How am I feeling physically? How am I feeling spiritually? It's essentially like, think like you're going through for an MRI or you're scanning yourself with your mind or whatever it is. It just picking up on that. That gives you a sense of a baseline of how you are showing up for yourself and others in the world. And we don't pay attention enough to that. It's not about, oh, I'm feeling sad today, as much as, what else does this mean? Where might it be coming from? That helps you. And then if, like, let's say you're like, I'm feeling a little bit depleted, I'm not necessarily sure what's going to happen or whatever, you can adjust your day and you can do the things that may help you either rest and stay grounded or fill up your energy. And you start to pay attention more to that and taking care of your energy and, again, how you show up. Now, from there, to amplify your energy or to tune in more psychically or intuitively, once you know that, like, for example, as I'm talking to you, I can picture, all right, my energy field and everything else is really expansive. I'm feeling really charged. I'm sending out whatever that intention is of that love and light. Is it to receive messages from source? Is it to get really clear on what it is I want? Your intention may change or your focus may change moment to moment or day by day, but at least then you're able to expand from inward out, and to also, and I know I'm saying big words here, but be in alignment with what it is that you need that day, whether it's with your higher self or what have you. So that's what I would say. There's a lot of other, aside from meditation, I like to visualize things, but not everyone has the ability to visualize. So if you're not if you can't visualize, then maybe it's through thought form, but it really just depends on how your mind and how your energy works and how you can pick up on things.
I've got a question to ask you. I want to see if
Mhm.
you what comes to you. I have a vision of, or not a vision. I have a suspicion that somebody could be my life partner. I want to
Mhm.
see if you can pick up on a name or if that has any relevance to me.
Well, I was hearing that you have many life partners. I know that sounds very vague and fortune cookie-ish, but that's what I'm hearing. So when people say like life partner, they tend to think, oh, I have one soulmate. And it's not that you're meant to be with this one particular person that you're thinking of forever. It's going to be one of those things where I'm hearing if you both choose to get together, then it's going to be for an extended period of time, but it's not forever in this lifetime.
Do you have any names coming through?
I don't do names. I don't get like names, like whoops names. I don't do that.
So when did you start your podcast? How many years ago?
It's going on almost 6 years now. So it'll be 6 years in June. And yeah, when I did start it, it was one of those podcasts were popular, but they weren't like they are today. I mean, everyone kind of has a podcast and it's the thing to have. But I had this I've been praying, meditating almost every single night about what is it that I can do? I'm feeling lost and as if I need to be doing something. And I heard podcast after 7 months of praying and meditation. And I said, podcast? I don't know the first thing is starting a podcast. What do I do? So that's how it got started. And it was when I said, okay, well, what's the purpose of this podcast? And it was about to connect people and have them understand that there's a lot of myths and misconceptions out there and to not feel alone when it comes to psychic and intuitive abilities. So that is what how it got started.
And do you have anything you want to promote or plug before we wrap it up?
It's really the podcast. I hope that, I like to interview people like yourself and others to see how and hear how they got started. And everybody's path and journey is different. There's a lot of near-death experiences, people that actually do and are mediums and can talk to people and loved ones on the other side, healers, all of that. And I always find it fascinating to hear, again, people's experiences, because if you have one, there's likelihood that somebody else is having something similar and that they can relate or at least find those resources. So that's the first thing that I try and do is reach as many people as possible to help as many people as possible when it comes to understanding their gifts.
I had a near-death experience back in the day, but that could be for another time. But again, part of the awakening, and that was the last time my grandma spoke to me after that near-death experience. She'd done what she needed to do, and then she never spoke to me again. So
it's like you're good. Well, she is, just in different ways. Maybe not the way that you would initially, were experiencing with her.
If you had one day left to live, what is the one thing that you would tell the rest of the world?
That you're not alone. I really fully believe that. When we cross over, our physical forms change, but we're connected in other ways with ourselves and everyone.
Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, please remember to subscribe, turn the bell notifications on, like the episode, and comment below. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's YesKingOliver. Take a look at the other videos to your side. And if you just want to listen to this podcast, you can do so on Apple and Spotify and most other platforms by going to talkwitholiver.com.